And it's not just the business, like the market fit that the accelerator helped with, but it's the whole running the studio, that project management and time management and networking. Those are all like incredibly valuable things. And like the connections that we've made going to game conferences and meeting with mentors.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. This is episode 60, right? 59? Damn it. I should have prepared for this. This is episode 59. It would have been 60, but we
Off by
had the
one.
GDC one. So, as you can see, we're doing a very special episode of the podcast here. I'm your host, Chris, and today we are not joined by Baby or Pumpkin. They're at home, so unfortunately. But Baby did just get a haircut, so that's very exciting. But we are here live at the ShawneeXP Gaming Accelerator in beautiful Portsmouth, Ohio. And we have just done our sort of publisher week. Many of these teams went to GDC last week. And then this week, we're doing sort of publisher pitch week. We have a whole bunch of guests and we have all the teams. So we are going to be doing conversations with all sorts of folks from the teams. But the first team we have... so we have Jonathan. How are you today?
Hey, pretty good. How you doing, Chris?
You were ready to do the podcast. The rest of these teams were questionably ready, but
We did coffee shot first.
yeah, we also have an audience over there too. So I was able to get my coffee and everything. But so first off, Jonathan, why don't you just a little bit about yourself and the game that you had been working on at the accelerator?
Sure. I have a small team outside of here, like most of the teams here, and we work on our game, The Rift Between Us, in our spare time, and we're looking to go professional with it. That's why we're here to get the help from Shawnee and the mentorship and publishers here. And the game is an action platformer. You can see it on Steam and wishlisted now, The Rift Between Us. It's an apocalyptic setting, and the main protagonist is looking for his love interest in this kind of desolate world.
I should have prepared with the thing here, but so we have been making you do all these pitch competitions, all these practice pitches.
Yes,
How
sir.
did you think yours went yesterday?
I think it went pretty well. I would guess around a B plus or so.
Oh, okay, you're giving yourself a grade?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, I can dig it.
Yeah, I think it went pretty well. Overall.
So I'm going to show the rift between us here just real fast. Here's your Steam page.
Yeah.
Our broadcasting. So what inspired you? Well, before I ask that, you said a B plus. How could you improve? I'll be a teacher. How do you think we can improve here?
So,
And I should mention, just we've got students on the chat, we've got other people, so I'm going to ask questions of the teams that can help. Since you guys have gone through a very intense accelerator program, a lot of these teams have never done any of that before. So I just kind of want to give them a taste of, what you learn and like where you sort of think you are as an indie developer. So.
okay, so first question was, how can I improve the pitch? I would say I was nervous for one, and that's getting a little better as I keep going through it, either whether I'm talking to my monitor or talking in front of people. And so the actual delivery could be a little improved. I mean, I haven't seen the footage of it yet, but, just I know that the words come out a little strange, or my body language is a little bit odd. Some of the wording in the pitch could be improved a little bit. We discussed that a little bit yesterday. And then depending on who you're pitching to, you get a lot of feedback kind of one direction or another. So tailoring the pitch to the specific publisher or what their personal preferences are would be good as well. And if I can do all of those things, we could push it to an A-, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about word choice. One of our upcoming teams will be discussing the use of the appropriate word during a pitch. He's currently texting somebody and not paying attention to the podcast.
I'm paying attention.
But it's important. It's one of those things when you're presenting, in essence, your story, you're presenting your thing, like you're never quite sure what people are going to grab onto, what word choice is. And sometimes you'll say something that isn't exactly the way you wanted to say it, and that's what they'll glom onto for the next 10 minutes or whatever, and you're just like, oh my god, how do we do this? But ultimately, you mentioned just preparing. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Is once you're comfortable with the content, once you know what you want to say, it becomes a lot easier to pitch. In my opinion, and this is from someone who I've done lots of public speaking. I teach. I've done TEDx talks. So I've talked in front of like 2,000 plus people, and I'm an introvert at heart. Like, I'm not. I don't really want to be up on stage, but I've done it so many times that I've kind of become comfortable at it. So that's one of the things I tell my students a lot, is that this kind of public speaking, communication stuff, like, these are skills you can build. And some people are kind of, I don't know, inherently maybe a little better at it at the start.
Like AJ?
Well, yeah, like maybe AJ. But also, we're going to have AJ on the show too. But I mean, he's gone to a lot of conventions. He's put himself in positions that force him to do that.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Yeah.
As we talk about you. But so the game itself, what was sort of the seed of creating Rick Between Us?
So the previous game that we made, The Last Sunshine Rekindled, was very abstract. And the scenario was, it's the end of the universe and you play as stars against like the encroaching darkness, and you had different stars that you play as with different abilities and that sort of thing. But it was so out there that it was kind of hard to wrap your mind around it or like relate to it at all. So one of the goals I wanted to do was add characters and faces and like voices that you go, oh, I like this person or that person or whatever. It's more relatable. And another thing too on a practical level was, I also sat and thought, it was kind of messy, the previous game we did. A lot of your first couple games are. But one of the things I thought of too was like, where do I want to be in 5 or 10 years, and what tech would I really want to work on, and what do I really like in games or want to see improved in games? And I began to kind of chisel out a number of systems that I could see myself working with for a long time.
Okay.
And that's kind of how some of the tech came to be. So for example, like, I like to manage resources in some way. I choose between these several options. That's kind of like the brewing. I like variability in my play. So we have like random enemy spawns, rewards, and world generation, that sort of thing. And yeah, that's basically how it came to be.
Okay. Yeah, that's it's interesting. The first part you mentioned about the sort of accessibility, connection part of it. Because I talked to Jonathan Blow. I've talked to him many times. Came to GDEX and I saw him at DICE the other week, and I was chatting with him because both of his games, Braid, but in particular The Witness, is an extremely hard game to kind of describe without kind of spoiling parts of it, because it's a very abstract concept and idea. And so I think when you're, particularly in the indie space, when we're trying to do like these interesting, cool ideas, it's like you have to be sort of in it to get it. Like, it's hard to market it.
Cryptic sometimes.
Yeah, and you're just like, just play it and you'll get it. And you're like,
right.
Well, what am I supposed to be getting? And like, you'll figure it out. But then also, I think for your game in particular, one of the things that caught me to it, and the other sort of selection people for the accelerator, was I think the way you have like your spells and like a lot of your particle effects and things, they just look really clean and like cool. Like, you've got that like ice one that kind of like, it's like a ball that like shoots like little ice things out or whatever. That one's like real neat. So I just think the way you constructed like the visual aesthetics and just being able to kind of understand what's going on the screen, because it's really easy for a game, I was gonna say a game like that, but any game really, to like get so overwhelmed with visual information that like it's hard for the player to discern what's going on, And I think you have a pretty good balance between that. Like, you can always tell what's going on, but a lot of them look cool as hell.
Yeah, that's the VFX graph we're using. We didn't use that the previous game, so shout out to Danny, our artist, who's working with the VFX graph, kicking and screaming a little bit, but he's getting it, and it looks nice, and it's super optimized. You can have a lot of particle effects with that tool, if you want. We don't need that much, but yeah.
Sweet. Well, we're gonna wrap up here. Anything you want to let the audience know? Obviously, you got your Steam page, but is there other ways to reach you? Your Four Eyes Games is your company. But
Yeah.
anything you want to say to the audience before we wrap up?
I think the main thing is if you like action platformers, that kind of game interests you, check out The Rift Between Us on Steam. It's The Rift Between Us. And give it a wish list. That'd be helpful. Yeah.
Apologies, I accidentally muted that last part, but he said thank you for the opportunity. So the audience told me to turn up the thing, and instead I muted it. But John, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you being here, and we're here to help.
Thanks.
So, awesome. All right, who wants to be up next?
I'll do it. I'm on my silly game for them.
Did you get your coffee?
Oh yeah. It'll be. Yeah, it's
Does it sound good now? And also, feel free to ask questions from the audience if you have anything that you want to ask folks.
Also, would it be crazy to have AJ on with us, like after the fact? Everyone should be in the hot seat, I guess.
You want to tag team it?
It doesn't matter to me, whatever you guys want to do.
You wanna
Maybe
tag
later
team it?
on we can talk together as peeps. We'll highlight our games specifically,
Yeah.
and then we can highlight the experience and kind of revisit Couch Gang with Elijah later.
Oh my gosh, could we bring back Couch Game for this?
I would love
That'd
that.
be sick.
I think that'd be great because think about how much we've grown in the few months since we've talked. So, audience, to let you know, am I on right now?
I'm just trying to prime something.
Myself, Thomas Jones, AJ Falco, right? Fulco, my bad. AJ Fulco and Elijah, I don't know Elijah's last name, of Nomad, or of Jollyware, excuse me. We all were interviewed on a couch at the end of the Shawnee State Expo kind of convention thing with Garrett Davis, who is a partner here of Chris here at the Shawnee State Accelerator. And it was really fun. And we cracked jokes, and we dubbed ourselves Couch Gang. And here we are on another couch, but just one of us. We'll get the three of us later, maybe.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome, good sir.
Chris, pleasure.
Perfect employee. You're what you rephrased it, the mischievous cat
Yeah.
office
So,
simulator. What's lighthearted?
yes, it's a lighthearted comic mischief game where you play as a cat working a desk job.
Okay.
Yes.
And you specifically reworded that
Yes.
because one of our previous conversations with the pitch brought some information to light in what we were talking about, how to present your ideas and your concepts. So
Yeah. I clearly.
you don't have to dig in as deep if you don't want to, bro.
Yeah, I've been working on this game for a while with my peers, and I've been pitching a lot. And I said a word that I needed to look up a synonym for that because I misrepresented the word or the game. I got feedback. Is this a bullying simulator? And I'm like, no, it's a goofball simulator mostly. Yeah. But it was really great feedback. Yesterday when we were pitching the game again to some publishers and people who are established in the industry, I felt like, it was very well received. So all is well there.
All is well.
Yes.
I don't know if we lost. Did we lose video?
Looks like we got video. Okay.
Yep.
Chat. Did we lose video?
We're in a new location. You know how the interwebs works.
Right.
Yeah, so I think for our students out there, again, I don't want to give anybody like some sort of like, fit conniption about like having to say everything appropriately all the time. But when you are sitting there and you're kind of talking, you're never quite sure what people will hook onto. And sometimes as soon as you say something, you're just like, oh, that's gonna bite me. But also this is a learning experience, right? Like that's the whole point of this accelerator is to help you guys be successful. So I guess what overall, how was your experience with the accelerator and the impact it had on your team and your work?
I mean, I am extremely grateful for the accelerator. I think, myself and my team were all really focused on making games, but any person can benefit from a mentor and from mentors and a little bit of direction on how to best use your energies for success and follow through, right? Yeah. I think that's the main thing that's been provided to me and our team is that guidance, right? Because when it comes to game design, and I'm sure AJ would agree with this, where you as a game design CEO or leader want to trust your instincts, but also to be able to, you know, measure those instincts against the experience of other people who've kind of tread that path before you. Just so much learning involved.
I think that's a really good point, because part of being, like, you're in a CEO position, so you're doing the game dev stuff and the business building stuff at the same time, which is what I've been doing the past 15 years. And you want to be in a place where you can kind of like trust your gut instincts on stuff, but you also have to realize that like you might not have the experience for your gut to make the right decisions. And then also I think, particularly when you're starting a new business or any new endeavor really, and you're not 100% sure what you should be doing, that can sometimes put you in like a state of paralysis, where you're like, I need to know all the information to make the perfect decision. And a lot of times it's just, there is no perfect decision, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of make the decision that seems the best at the time and see what happens. And truth be told, 99% of the time, like, it's going to work out okay. It won't be perfect, but it won't like explode on you most of the time. But that's really what it's ultimately about. And the other thing you kind of hit at, and this is something I talked with AJ yesterday about off camera, is we are thinking about potentially expanding. So the ShawneeXP program is a 10-week program, and we're thinking about expanding it to maybe a 12 or 14-week program, which I realize is a big ask.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, my immediate response is like, oh, our teammate who lives in Michigan most of the time, asking for those 4 additional weeks off of work might be kind of a hard sell. But
so part of that would hopefully be that we could maybe provide some more funding and whatnot to help smooth that over. But the ignoring all those like logistics, the general idea is we noticed that we spent so much time on sort of the business aspects of getting things going. We didn't really do a ton of like game design sessions. So I'm just curious, like, your thoughts off the rip here on balancing all the different.
I think that would be great. I think it might also be great to get the teams that went through the accelerator to also kind of serve as mentors to the early team. I know I'd be happy with the new cohort to kind of talk about my experience and what I would recommend, like how to prepare yourself mentally.
Like the upcoming
for the upcoming one. I think that would also be a helpful thing. And I would agree, more game design stuff, because, you know, our team right now, we are luckily working with mentors who are willing to still hang and talk with us and help us with the game design aspect of our game and putting more gasoline on it, right? Going back to our previous statement of trust your instincts, but also measure it against experience and that type of stuff. I think that would be a good idea if you guys can wing it and pull it off.
Yeah, it's something we're thinking about and considering. And then the other thing that we have is that, you know, we've reopened the Sandbox incubator. So we had that before COVID. When COVID hit, we kind of went remote a little bit, and then we just closed it because we didn't have a space or whatever. Should have kept it digitally probably, but whatever. But now we're sort of bringing you guys in to keep providing those expanded services, because I think ultimately too, like, money's great, right? Like, if you can get money to actually pay people and eat and things like that, like, that's generally a positive. But then the other part that I noticed when I was starting my business is, and I had the benefit of, I have a master's in health administration, which is in essence an MBA for healthcare. So I had experience understanding like profit and loss statements and, you know, just general business principles. But then when you sit down, you're like, well, who should I use for my digital storage? What, you know, is there a Kanban board system? What is a Kanban board? Like, is there a platform we should use for our project management? Like, who do I talk to about taxes? And, you know, who do I talk to about making legal agreements? And all that stuff takes time and money. Like, we went through, like, even something like we used Dropbox for a while, and then we switched to Google Drive. But that process is not, it's not like when you own a business, you're just like, well, I'm going to switch from one system to another. You know, like, it takes days to transfer all your files over and make sure everything's copied properly. Every time you switch a project management system, it takes time. And you just lose all that time and money when you're a small business and you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because you're just taking a guess, right? So that's a big thing with the accelerator, the incubator, is like, hey, here's all the things that we recommend or we like using. You don't have to use them if you don't want to. But at least you're just like, okay, now I know I can do this thing, at least to get started.
Yeah.
And I bet, I say this all the time, but I've probably wasted at least $1 million over the past decade
Goodness.
on just making changes to platforms or trying something and it didn't work out, or hiring bad employees. Like, it's all.
Could I jump in with an idea?
You can do whatever you
so
want, man.
when you bring in your new cohort, maybe on the first day or early on, once they've been accepted, you should ask them a question. What systems does your team already use? Like, do you use Google Drive? Do you use Miro? Do you use the Kanban system? And then you can have, like, as mentors, you know what they've already touched, and you'll also be able to see the blind spots that they haven't thought about
that's a good
yet,
point.
right? And then you can basically coach them right from the jump on, have you tried these systems, and do you think, talking to the heads or all the founders together, like, do you think this could elevate your gaming development timelines, experience, so on and so forth? Because there are things that we as a team coming in did not use that we use now that I do think have really helped us a lot, right?
Okay.
So we learned that over the course of the accelerator, but for you guys as instructors and people who guide us, you have a foundation in knowing what the team might need help with, right?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And just places like Pexels, PEXELS.com. Like, that's my favorite, one of my favorite sites. People, they're always like, we've had conversations about like making good pitch decks and stuff. And one of my first recommendations is go to Pexels, because there's all these free images that you can use that will just spruce up your deck a little bit. Like, you don't want to make your deck entirely that, because then it's like, well, what is your actual game?
Yeah.
But there's plenty of like interesting things if you just need like a vibe piece or some kind of concept piece, and they're all free to use. So Pexels.com. Icon Archive's really good too. But anyway, Perfect Employee. You just came back from GDC, and I believe you got a pretty good recognition, I guess.
Yeah, we went to the very big little indie pitch. I'm kind of butchering it, I'm sure, but it was a Pocket Gamer event. And there was a pitch competition, and Perfect Employee placed second place, which was pretty exciting. The way it worked out is I sat down at a few different judge tables and had 4 minutes to pitch our game and convince them that this is a cool product you should care about. And I guess I did a pretty good job. Shout out to the Perfect Employee team for helping us make such a great pitch deck and practicing, and thank you to the person who gave us awful feedback at the last pitch I did. That made me have to evaluate my entire, on-camera behavior, I guess. I don't know. But it went really well. I've started to really like pitching. And I think for me, sharing the enthusiasm I have for my game is what is the foundation when it comes to making a good pitch. It's like, I've heard the quote, you got to love your own beats, right, before you share them. You got to love your own game before you can share it, right?
Yeah, I think that's a important part is, like, at the end of the day, whether it's your game you're working on or your family or significant other or relationship or whatever, it's like, if you're not excited about this stuff, like, other people aren't going to be excited.
You should definitely love your partner.
Yeah. That's generally good advice. But, I just think at the end of the day, like, I don't think you need to be like boisterous, jumping up and down. Like, you don't have to do the Ballmer Microsoft on stage woo thing. You know the Steve Ballmer. Look that up if you haven't seen it.
I think I know about it.
But I think you do need to be excited and knowledgeable about what you're doing, because that enthusiasm will be felt by other people. And I think that we, as an industry, particularly because we're always just doing things like at the last minute, where it's like, oh shit, we have a pitch in 2 days, we got to get all this stuff together.
Yeah.
While you're working on your beta build and introducing new bugs that you now have to squash, and it just, in the priority of things to take care of, sometimes this stuff falls, and you're just like, I'm just going to create a bunch of slides with bullet points on them.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not the most exciting thing in the world.
Yeah, I'd love to just talk about the pitch, and for all you other prospective game developers out there in the internet world and maybe in this room. You asked Jonathan how he would rate his pitch and sort of like, I don't know, how he felt about his delivery and so. Before I pitch, I always get a little bit of nerves and thinking how to go about it. But what always calms me down, and I hope this is helpful, I remember that no one knows this product as well as I do, right? Mm-hmm. The person who's making it. And if I can speak from a place of like, this is the thing you've been working on, like just convince them that you know this product and you love this product and you're going to be fine. If you can just do that, You can miss a sentence here, you can forget a point here, but like you got this, man. And I think all game developers can if you know that, you can't fail, and that's sort of how I think. Unless you say the word bully to describe the gameplay of your game.
Yeah, there's only one bully game in the world, and they never made a sequel to that, right?
Yeah.
So
well, there's lots of bully games. They're just Flash games from like the early 2000s.
No, I think ultimately you hit the nail on the head. I went to art school. That's what my bachelor's is in, and that was one of the things when you're doing constructive critiques in art school. Like the number one thing is don't insert your own negatives. Like because they don't know what you were trying. Like you've got your piece up on the wall. The audience is looking at it. They're making their comments and thoughts, but they don't really know what you were trying to do. They don't know all the mistakes you think you made. And so if you stand up there and you're just like, well, I wanted to do this, but I couldn't do it. And then I ran out of time, so I couldn't do this. And you just go through this laundry list of things that like you didn't do.
Yeah.
It detracts away from the piece itself.
I definitely want to talk about this because when I practice, every once in a while I'll say something where I kind of talk down this like option that is available to our players. And I immediately catch myself when I'm practicing, like, I will not talk down any idea that's in this game. Like, I'm not gonna make fun of my players for wanting to choose a direction because that is their choice. That is the choice we're providing. It's like for me with Perfect Employee, I like causing chaos, and everyone has their own play style of a game. Always support them. Always support the decision making and choices and pitching too. Yeah, so
that's also how you create meaningful choice in games.
Yeah,
is you give people options, and those options have actual impact on the long-standing decision matrix or however your game functions.
Yeah, and take notes on player behaviors while they're playing the game. You're like, I didn't realize people would really like this. So
that's a big thing too for a lot of folks that are new. We've got GDEX coming up here in 5 months. Applications are open for exhibitors, so thegdex.com. But you'll notice a lot of new people who are showcasing their games will often kind of stand over the players, and they'll start, like, if they get lost a little bit, they'll direct them where to go. And I was like, you should just let the players play. Like, if they're stuck to the point where they're starting to get really frustrated and you want them to experience the game,
light bulb should go off.
Yeah, then you can, first of all, you should be writing that down.
Yeah.
Because that's a theme that's happening. Maybe then you can direct them to get them out of that position. But you want to see where people are struggling, what they're getting, a joy from, what they're connecting to. Like, a lot of times you might find players are just doing wacky stuff and you're like, oh, that gives you an idea for a cool thing. Like, or if you notice a player wants to do something, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about game design and analysis. Surprise, surprise.
Wow.
But one of them, I think it's Rasputin, who does like I made my wife play video games or whatever. And it's really interesting watching how she handles games, because we as gamers, games have a language to them, and we kind of understand that language.
Yeah.
But she doesn't play a lot of games, and so she's just like, if someone's like, hey, go do this thing, her natural inclination is to go over there and try to do the thing. And one of the examples is gives in Doom 2016, it's supposed to like destroy.
I've watched this video.
Yeah, where she's supposed to like destroy this pillar. And she's like, okay, she starts shooting it. That doesn't work. She throws a grenade at it. That doesn't work. She shoots it with like a rocket launcher. That doesn't work. And it's just like, I'll ask my class, like, what do you think the answer to this is? And they're like, go up to it and press X. I'm like, yep. It's an interactable, right? But in her mind, she's like, destroy means shoot or blow up or whatever. And so just seeing how your audience, particularly the game that you're...
Yeah, I was going to say...
Because you're very sandboxy.
Yeah, and also VR doesn't really have like established canon. So like WASD movement is pretty ingrained in gaming culture on PC. Like people are used to using controllers, dual analog stick controllers, but VR is still new enough that there hasn't been established like, how do you do the controls? Like it's easy in some sense because you are using your hands. It's a very Wii-like kind of situation where we're all very used to pointing at things. So our philosophy is just as intuitive and simple as the controls are, don't cause confusion on our players. When we first made our game, we had these weird, imagine you're in the game and you have this like pointer, like a laser pointer kind of, and you would interact in the game with these laser pointers going around. But when we had players in our game, it confused the hell out of them. And so what doesn't confuse players in a game like this is anything that's tactile. So you have cat paws, and when you're typing at the keyboard, you're holding the controllers and you're just going like this.
Yeah.
That's easy to understand in so many different ways because you recognize I don't have thumbs if I'm a cat. But if I'm using...
Also that like cats like playing piano and stuff is kind of ingrained in our
Right.
of just like hitting it with their paws.
Right, and when it comes to picking up items, using the most normal like index finger use is easy. So in our game, if it isn't tactile, it doesn't belong in our game, right?
Okay.
So since we've made that decision, all of the design decisions we've made are way cleaner and way better play tested. So another example, in the game there's a computer and mouse, and I want to leave it up to some of our other teams here, but you're working at the
We got a
keyboard.
couple more minutes.
You can grab a mouse in the game using the pointer thing, and then it behaves just like a mouse does in real life. So
Okay.
if you're someone who's worked an office job but not much of a gamer, all you have to do is go into this world. You have these hands, and you're like, well, I've used my hands my whole life, right?
Yeah.
So then I can, kind of use the things as they would normally work, right?
Totally.
So
No, I agree. I think that was sort of the impetus for the touch display for the iPhone. I one of the things I recommend my students watch is the first 15 minutes or whatever of the iPhone announcement from Steve Jobs is probably one of the best product introductions in history. The way he phrases it, the way he kind of tricks the audience to bring them along. But he mentions using your fingers because we're all born with them, most of us, and we understand how to use them.
Right.
So real fast was my last question, because along this, a really interesting conversation came up yesterday at the pitch and has kind of come up over time, which is you sort of need to make a marketing decision because you are, and I think in many cases rightly so, that you feel your experience is based in VR.
Yeah.
That is the experience.
right,
But by doing that, you are limiting your potential user base
Right.
by not having a flat screen or 2D version. And I know this is something that you've gone back and forth in your head and your team on.
yeah, I've been saying the medium is the message, because for a game like Perfect Employee, I've always felt very strongly that VR is a system where you get truly transported to a different world. It's just like the Matrix. When people take off the headset, they're like, I usually say to them, welcome back to the real world. And they're like, wow, I was really gone for a second. I'm like, I know. And so for our players to believe my pitch, where it's like, you become Lyle, you become this cat, VR is just the way that actually becomes the truth. Whereas like on a flat screen, you can still kind of express yourself as a cat, but I don't think it goes full immersion, right?
Yeah.
And so our team, this is an ongoing conversation. I'm excited for the talks later today. I think we will make a port of Perfect Employee that is more accessible to lots of different people, because our team does care a lot about accessibility.
Sure.
And one of the things with VR is a lot of people get motion sickness during it. My mother being one of them,
I'm
but
one of them.
but she loves our game, right? And she thinks it's cute. She watches my brother play it when he comes to the house and play test and all this type of crazy stuff. So we as a team will kind of work on that, but our foundation, like our what is it? Like early access release will be VR, and we'll see if we can get some momentum there, because I Am Cat, which came out as a VR game, got like 18 million users or something crazy, right?
Sure.
I think there's a fear in the publishing world where it's like VR is a dead system, where it's not got enough players, right? But a lot of people own headsets, they're just waiting for the right games to play on their headsets.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, a couple things. First of all, publishers, just like any investor, it's all risk management. Like they're putting in money and efforts, and they want to make sure that they're going to get a return. And when you're like, we're going to go with one of the smallest user platforms in the world and cut out all the others, like they're going to get chest pains, right?
Right.
But that being said, I didn't bring this up at the pitch because I just wanted to kind of keep things moving. Like,
Sure.
You can release a VR game and then later down the road release, like you don't have to do it day and date.
Yeah.
All right.
Our team can also, like, our team's full of smart people. We can create, like, okay, we'll put a dividing wall between them. Here's our VR systems and how they work in VR. How do we translate it into a more traditional game experience, right? Do we go first person? Do we go third person? Like, how do we make sure the players get as much joy as possible, right? But you also want to measure, like, we're not going to make a Bethesda game, right? Where we create this massive thing, right?
Yeah.
So you got to keep scope creep in mind. But yeah, I'm open to the conversation and reworking some things. So
Sweet.
if I'm wrapping up.
Yep. So I mean, we're at the end here, and well, we're not quite done yet.
Okay, well, we'll shake hands
Yeah,
again.
I was gonna say, like, is there anything you want to let the audience know? The best way to kind of follow you and stay in contact with you?
So you can find our website, perfectemployee.com. You can also find our trailer on YouTube. just shoot us a message. We're also secondwaystudios.games@gmail.com, but I'll be changing that at some point to Second Way Studios email or whatever. Just find us, and if you know Chris, talk to him, and then he'll contact me. I'm very accessible, and yeah.
Awesome, sir. Well,
yeah.
thank you much.
Yeah, pleasure. Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. All right. Who wants to come up next? Are we gonna mole-mate it?
It's gonna be neat.
Okay.
Cool.
What's going on, dude?
How we doing?
It's good.
The mic pick me up all right?
Yeah.
I see it over there and I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've got it set up. This is not, like I said, it's a condenser mic. It's
Right.
sort of designed for being close to your face, but
spatial awareness.
it should be fine. Yeah. Originally, I was gonna kind of point it this way, but then I didn't want it to get in the way of the camera.
Well,
it's a whole thing.
What you got to do is you got to do like the dual mic setup, like on most podcasts on the couch, where everyone can just kind of like get the mic like right up in their face.
That's
or
the
something.
thing. Is like my at home. We have a podcasting studio downstairs, but it's in the basement, and I wanted people to be able to see and walk by. And
Right.
stuff. But my setup at home, I've got my soundboard and
Yeah.
I've got my mics, and I didn't want to cart all that
Yeah.
crap down.
Yeah.
So we're doing what we can here.
Right.
All right, AJ. So you are the founder of Tasty Games.
That's correct.
Which what's your tagline? You want to make
Making games you can sink your teeth into.
There you go. And then your current title is Mole Maiden,
Correct.
which you've been working on for I think about 4 years.
About 4 years. Yeah.
We met 2 years ago at the Cleveland Gaming Classic just by happenstance. We were
We were right across
yeah
from
we
each
were right
other.
across
Yeah.
from each other. You and your mom were there.
Yep.
And you had a great setup. Like you've got your color scheme and your theming. I think obviously is very.
Very
got,
pink.
Got on your shirt there.
Yeah.
But it creates your
Brand.
palette, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was very noticeable. I think did you win something at?
I
CGC?
won most fun at the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean that's pretty.
It's pretty cool.
To be
that,
most
that
fun
was
at the
that was
show.
my first trade show that I actually did. Like that was like my first public showing with the game. I had you had done like student capstone showcases, showed it to my friends and things like that. But that was the first time that I got like that raw public like feedback and perception and things. So yeah.
Okay. And you'll have to forgive me, but my brain is mush these days. But did you win anything at the GDEX Awards?
I won an honorable mention for sound design.
That's right,
music.
sound design,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the one that beat me was the horror game, which makes sense because horror is as a genre it's all about sound design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny when we do our awards. Sound and music design is always like the hardest one.
Yeah.
Because like we have to go and we have to listen to it, and sometimes it's on a noisy show floor.
Right.
And you're really trying to like it's a lot easier to just walk around and look at
Right.
things to talk
Yeah.
about like visual design or
Yeah.
whatever, but sound is so hard. But
It's also funny because I've done at least 5 trade shows at this point, right? And one of the things that I love about my game particularly is the soundtrack and the sound design.
Mm-hmm.
Like my sound designer and my co-composer just really knocked it out of the park. So I always pack like noise canceling headphones.
Yeah.
Because I want people to like listen to it. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to wear someone else's headphones. I get scared about lice. I'm like, well,
you're like I'm wiping them down.
I spent the money to let you experience this. So it's always a bit disappointing where it's just like, what'd you think of like the music? And it's like, oh, I didn't wear the headphones. I'm like, oh, you missed out on like something really, really cool.
Yeah, I get it, but also it's when you have something you're really proud of and people are just like, eh.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, all right.
Okay.
So do you want to give a quick rundown of what Mole Maiden is?
Yeah. So Mole Maiden is a new 2D Bossavania, where it's a boss rush Metroidvania.
Is this a term you're
Yes.
creating?
My marketer came up with it.
Okay.
I'm quite proud of it.
I was actually legitimately, not to interrupt you, surprised where one of the comments on the pitch yesterday was that like Metroidvania is like sort of a negative.
Well, okay, so now that we'll get back to that. I'll do the
Okay,
pitch.
do your
but
thing.
I do want to talk about that. So it's a 2D Bossavania game about a mole girl who leaves home to become a pro wrestler. So you play as this young girl named Penny, And her older sister, Capra, is a fighting league champion, and she wants to be just like her big sister. So she needs to leave home and fight the 4 Borough League captains so she can face her sister in the ultimate battle. So it's a game about the trials and tribulations of pursuing your dreams, and it's like gamified and told as an athlete fantasy, so that it's a lot more accessible to a lot of different people.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the sort of the primary shtick being this drilling mechanic where you can go like into and out of areas.
It creates this very flow state like control scheme, and the idea behind that was I wanted an interesting way for the player to like outmaneuver bosses, because Penny is. Do I have to like? Are you like? Oh, okay, you're like motioning. To
I'm
the
just
mic.
just ignore me. I'm always constantly checking things.
Yeah.
I mean,
The idea was that the player had to like outmaneuver or outsmart their opponents, because Penny's like a very small character and she's going up against people who are like a lot bigger and a lot more stronger than her. So I wanted there to be like this cool way to like find ways around opponents or go through opponents and things like that. And the burrowing mechanic was just a fun prototype that I had, and then the fighting league thing kind of came after I finished the drilling prototype.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sort of the boss aspects I think are very interesting. And then you mentioned something yesterday that I don't recall you saying before, but maybe it was a response to the Metroidvania kind of thing. But you'd mentioned like a lot of Metroidvanias and stuff. I don't want to say they're prescriptive in how it kind of like you go to an area, you find something, or whatever, and you found that like people were really gravitating towards the boss elements of the game.
Yeah, well, it was also the character element of it. So for me, I love games like Undertale or Pokemon Black and White, where the boss characters played like a more pivotal role in the story, and you got to like get to know them up to their boss fight.
I think that's something that like, so I love like Metroid, Super Metroid.
Yes.
I think is amazing. Metroid 2 is amazing.
Yeah.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Love
like,
that one.
Like I love a lot of those Metroidvania games, but I do think it's changed over the years. So like a lot of my experiences, 80s to 90s to mid 2000s, where you play Symphony of the Night or any Castlevania game, and there's a bazillion bosses, and sometimes the bosses are really cool.
Yeah.
But they're not really integral to anything narratively.
Yeah, they're just there to like wreck you up a little.
Yeah, they're there for a cool fight.
Yeah.
And so I think bringing in those interweaving aspects or elements, I guess might be a better way to say it, is super important. And then it also allows you to kind of, create a little connection with
the world.
Yeah. As you go.
That was the exact intention.
Okay. Well, then you're on it.
I'm on it. Yeah.
So I think it's probably safe to say that out of all the accelerator teams, you are the closest to release. You're the farthest in development. And you'd planned on releasing in a couple months, and I've been poking you like maybe we should delay it a little bit. So you've been thinking about that. You've already sort of announced that you're delaying it a little bit, but you've got all these other considerations that are sort of defining what your release is. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about like how do you make that decision when like ready is ready and it's time to go.
Well, it's interesting. The first philosophy that I had about it was I set a deadline, and that's how much time I get to work on the game. And whatever time I have,
I think deadlines are important.
Yeah, like setting Persona 5 taught me that like having a deadline is a great way to like motivate you and figure out how you're going to get everything that you want done on time. It's
really easy to push. It's the same with anything. It's like, I'm going to start going to the gym and lose some weight.
Right.
Like, and then I'll wait till tomorrow.
And then you don't have a deadline, and then you never get to it. So for me, I was like, okay, I want to launch May 25. And then that kind of dictated like, okay, this is what I'll have to cut if I want to meet that deadline. This is who I'll have to bring on if I want to meet that deadline.
Sure.
And so when it got to the point where like I could play through the whole game from start to finish without, anything missing from like the core experience that I wanted to have, that for me was like, okay, this is good enough. We can start like polishing and then releasing.
Yeah.
But then what happened was I finished the accelerator and I got some grant money. And then I realized, oh, okay, we can maybe justify delaying the game a little bit and then then Zola approached me and like, we want to work with you. You can use our services. And then we figured out we could do things with marketing that way. And then that coincided with, maybe we could do. We got to find like some tech that could allow us to do like localization. And then my team is like a multicultural team. Like we're all very internationally focused, so we all speak different languages. And then we were like, could I help with like the French localization? Could I help with the Portuguese localization? I know somebody from Japan who can help us with the Japanese localization. And then we were like, then we can launch internationally, and that gives us the opportunity for more people around the world to experience our game.
Sure.
So that was just sort of like, okay, we're learning how to launch a game. We can do some extra stuff. The more time we have to talk about the game, the more our numbers go up, and that only helps us.
Totally.
So that was just sort of like, okay, we can do that. It wasn't like it has to come out now. Because honestly, if the game came out in May, there's so much stuff that has come up recently that's happening in May. Like it would have been pretty bad if we did launch in May.
Yeah, well, we also didn't talk about this yesterday at pitch day. I meant to kind of just have like an offline conversation, but people are legitimately waiting to see what GTA 6 is doing.
Yeah.
Like if you go and look at the release schedule for games, like after about the end of May to June-ish,
yeah, it's like dead.
Yeah, nobody wants to release against GTA 6.
Yeah.
So everybody's just waiting.
Yeah.
And so that's a hard place to be. And then once you get there, because they said they're going to be sometime in fall theoretically this year. Then you enter holiday season, which means a lot of the big boys, your Call of Duties and others, are going to start coming out, and now you're competing against them.
Yeah,
and it can be a challenge to figure out where to slot you in. And then it was also mentioned yesterday that most publishers are going to want like minimum of 6 months, but usually like a 12-month like lead time, so they can properly do their promotions and get you in front of media and whatever else.
Yeah, there's when you finish your game, you should always give yourself like a year to like polish or do like your marketing build up. That's something that somebody told me a couple of GDCs ago.
Yeah.
And now I'm like really starting to see that in practice.
That's a big thing, I think. Again, we're devs. We're so like focused on building the
right.
product.
Yeah.
And that a lot of times you're just like, well, when I get close to release, then we'll start marketing. It's like you really should be planting those seeds about 12 months before launch, so you can make sure you're set up. And then there's also this saying. It's not the most PC saying, but yeah, sometimes you like see somebody and you're like, oh man, if they were like 5% better looking, they'd be 20% more attractive. And that applies to software too, where there's like a variety of things that like, if you can identify them and you put in a little bit of effort to clean them up or polish them, it will really have big impacts for your game overall.
Yeah.
And you don't see those until the very end.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think like game development's like, every month we're doing an equal amount of work or whatever. But really when you get to the end, that's when you're sort of like shoving everything into the closet and trying to make it work.
Literally, I don't know if you've ever done theater, if you have like a theater background. I have a theater background, and I compare it to like dress rehearsal week. Like it's not until like the week before your show happens that like all the sets and all the props and all the costumes come together, and we do like a full run through, and then that's when we like see this thing that we've been working on for the last 5 months actually like come together.
Yeah.
And then we do it, which is so like for me that's what it feels like right now being in beta is like, okay, we're doing like dress rehearsal right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Morpheus says, there's a difference between like knowing the path and walking the path. And when you get to that ending space, you just notice and sometimes you're just like these clothes don't fit right. Or like little things you don't think about, like from a theater perspective, like these outfits are contrasting against the background in a weird way.
Yeah.
If you're recording it or the lighting is bouncing in some kind of... I remember the first GDEX we did our VR section, our VR worlds, which was super popular. Like tons of devs wanted to do VR space, and we had put them all kind of in roughly the same area. And this was back when they were all using the infrared cameras.
Yeah.
And once we had them all set up, we realized they were all interfering with each other.
Yeah.
So we had, 20 VR devs, and the floor of the convention center is like this kind of bright
so everything's flashing back.
So all these IR signals are bouncing all over the place, and like nobody could get their proper beads, and we had to like set up barriers, like, pipe and drape to block everything off. And it's like we just didn't think about it
No.
until we were there.
Yeah.
But
That happens all the time.
Yeah, that's just how it goes, man. Well, we're getting towards the end here. Anything you want to tell the audience?
Yes.
How can they contact you? Ways to follow you?
We are on all social medias right now as either Mole Maiden or Tasty Games. Actually, it's just Mole Maiden.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead and follow us on social media, that would be awesome. Helps all of our numbers go up. And then if you want to play Mole Maiden, we have a demo up on Steam right now. You can just go to Steam, type in Mole Maiden. It's right there. Give that a play. Let us know what you think, and give us a wish list. And stay tuned for the release date of Mole Maiden.
Sweet, man. Well, thank you much.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Appreciate
Always
it.
a pleasure. All right, who's up next?
Yeah, I'll jump up there.
You guys have been waiting there. We're like,
No, I'm just enjoying listening. Yeah. Just having fun listening.
we're gonna address these.
Oh,
Yeah.
you want to sit there? There? Okay.
Let's make sure. So, like, all up on you. Sweet. So we've got Colin and Francis from Twisted Hourglass now,
Twisted
but also
Hourglass now.
Objective Reality games. You've got, I guess we'll start with a physical space is kind of a part of your repertoire
Right,
for,
right.
for games. I don't know if you want to talk about that, and then we can
Sure,
talk about how you
yeah.
got involved in the accelerator.
Yeah, so we've been in the VR space since 2019. We have a VR arcade that's in Chillicothe, Ohio, down south. Actually north of here. It's you come into our location. We have about 20 different VR titles. We really are focusing on free roam VR right now, which is rather than teleporting around and playing these games, you're physically running around this 20-foot square of space.
Yeah.
And I like those better personally because, like you mentioned, I think with one of the previous guests, VR can be very disorienting, and motion sickness is a problem.
Yeah.
And with the free roam, you kind of eliminate some of that. So those are fun.
I don't know if I already told you the story, but a couple of GDXs ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we had this game, and it was a horror game, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was like, you got to go and play this game. You got to go check this game out. And I was like, okay. And so finally on Sunday, when I wasn't running around like crazy for GDX,
Right.
I was like, I'm gonna go check this game out. So I go over to it, and they're like, well, do you want to do like the PC or do you want to do like the real one, the VR one? And I was like, well, everyone's talking about, I gotta do the VR one.
Right.
So I get in there, they get me set up. It's a controller. It's not the hand controller. It's like it's an actual controller.
Oh, okay.
And I started, the first thing gamers do when they get a controller is kind of test all the buttons and see what does what. And they didn't disable the right stick as look.
Oh,
So
okay.
as soon as I hit the right stick and the screen in my VR goggles moved,
Right.
my brain it shattered. My brain shattered, and I became instantly nauseous.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
my brain's like, we're not moving, and yet it's like,
Right.
and I was nauseous for like 3 or 4 hours afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reminds me of Resident Evil 7 because they did that too. They had the VR, and you could actually look around with the right thumbstick too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like if your head is moving in the space with the VR, like you don't need
Right.
another thing.
Yeah.
But also GDEX last year you guys set up.
Yeah, you got to check out our free roam.
I would love to have you guys back. I know last year I think you had like a little you got sick or whatever, and we kind of had.
Yeah, that was a rough week.
But I'd love to have you back because I noticed that the I think it was the Saturday you guys were there. You were constantly busy.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and I
people
brought
loved it.
I brought my
Yeah.
friend's daughter who was 11 at the time, and
Yeah.
she loved it.
That's awesome.
We did the parking garage zombie.
The zombie one, yeah.
We have to like build the barricades and shoot
Right.
the zombies and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. So you've got sort of experience both in sort of like the game dev side, but also just I don't know, creating experiences side, I guess.
Right, yeah. So that's where we started. And we license a lot of those experiences from different devs. So we've been doing that since 2019. And then we decided shortly thereafter that we wanted to start making our own stuff. So we got Francis on board and our other teammates, and we started working on VR content primarily. So we made our first title, Deed of Deception, which is out on Steam. And it was our first run at making an experience, so we found a lot of ways not to do things, right?
Sure.
But then we pivoted and we started working in the industrial training space, and we've been doing that primarily for the last few years. But with this accelerator, we decided that we wanted to get back into gaming, and we brought back out our concept for Data Deception, and we're reworking that now for PC flat screen gaming. And we're really excited about that. I think the concept is cool for the game, and we just want to be able to deliver it the way that we envision it.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I kind of have two questions. One is, how did you get kind of involved in the accelerator? And then the second being, you've already had experience owning your own business and kind of running that. How did you feel like the accelerator, either helped or was in line with some of your previous experiences?
Sure, yeah. So I've been in a few different accelerators, Rev 1 Ventures out of Columbus, and some other ones, and
where were you the best, to be honest?
Honestly, I honestly think that the mentorship here was amazing. I've got connections with Shawnee from just being in the gaming space for so many years.
Sure.
I've spoken at previous Shawnee game conferences on just the business side because I have a business degree as well in health administration.
Okay.
So
nice.
I handle the business side of things, and it's something that a lot of game devs don't really take into account until they start to actually make the game, and then it's like, well, wait, how do we build a company around this?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the place where I come from, but with this accelerator, it really focused in on how do you make the experience enjoyable for the player and all the ins and outs of getting the game into a state where we're ready for publishing and things like that. So it's been amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. Francis, how did you get involved in all this?
So I got involved in 2020 when my dean, or not my dean, my dean actually contacted him and told him that I was looking for a job.
Okay.
So
I need a job.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
So my campus was like, yeah, you can hire her. And he contacted me. And
yeah. Okay. At the time, it was right in the middle of COVID, and we had just opened our storefront a few months prior, and we were sitting there with nothing to do because everything was shut down. And I said, you know what? I think I want to take a crack at making some games because that sounds, definitely passionate about it. So I reached out to some universities, some contacts I had. Shawnee was one of them, and then Kent and Ohio State. And they were amazing, and they linked us up with some grad students and some seniors getting ready to graduate. Okay. And we started to build our team with grads. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of sounds like the opposite. We had started a joint venture for a VR architecture platform, and we built it all out, and so that like architects could insert CAD files, and then we could create a space out of them. Yeah. Really cool tech. We were working on this platform. Started the joint venture in February of 2020, and within 2 months, COVID had hit.
Right.
And all the architects were like, "We're not spending money on anything." And we're like, "Well, crap."
Right. Yeah.
So we have this cool platform, but nobody wanted to use it or whatever.
Shoot.
So that was a shame. It was a cool experience, like making that. But
yeah.
So you are. I mean, I guess you're working on the game. This is a very common thing. You're working on your game while also running another business. It's very common. Like most of the people here in the accelerator have full-time jobs, so they're kind of balancing that. Like in your mind, how are you making those balances between working on the product?
So my full-time job is working on the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is my only job.
Okay.
Yeah, so I try to balance by, we have temp or part-time employees that run the storefront, so I can focus a lot of my energy on this project and to put some walls up, I guess. I don't know the words, what I'm trying to say, but basically,
like guardrails or?
Yeah. So this is a separate company, so we split this off into Twisted Hourglass Studios. To kind of just give this its own space.
Or identity.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, we've got Objective Reality, that's the VR stuff, and I've got, the employees running that, and then this is, we just separated this off and focus on the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, you guys have like a cool logo and stuff. You had your shirts yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
Representing.
Yep.
And then our artist Katie, who many of you were helped you with the pitch
She
deck
did,
to get ready.
amazing work. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I know a lot of this sometimes just comes together so quickly. And it's just like you guys
Right.
needed to be ready for like GDC and then pitch week.
Yeah.
I know what it's like. It's a lot. So you're still in the pre-production phase. You're doing your initial designs.
Right.
How do you feel like do you feel like you have a good handle on the gameplay loop and everything right now? And when do you think you'll go into kind of full production?
Yeah, so we conceptually we know what we want it to be. We're pulling a lot of inspiration from board games. Francis and I are huge board gamers. We love horror-based board games, and we also love Amnesia: Dark Descent, Phasmophobia. So we're trying to blend those into our game. So we have a vision of where we want it to be. Right now, we have the vertical slice that we're really just working through getting good feedback from playtesting, and we want to lean on our community of playtesters to kind of tell us what they want to see in the game. It's a multiplayer experience, so we want to make sure that we're building the game that people are going to have fun playing.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear the sirens are going off right now.
Yep.
So I guess as we sort of wrap up here, we've got publisher pitch conversations happening today.
Yeah.
What are you hoping to get out of these conversations today as you interact with these folks?
Yeah, so we had some conversations last night with a few of the publishers who came over and checked the game out. What I really want to hear feedback on from the publishers is, obviously we want to get to a place where we are signing with a publisher. So I want to hear from the publishers.
Money with
yeah,
the
right. Yeah. So hearing from them, what they'd like to see in the game, what things we should work on to get to a place where the game is publishable. So just getting some feedback and making those connections so we can follow up later.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask what I always ask. Is there any way for them to follow you, to keep in touch? Like any last notes you'd like to say out to our
Sure,
chat?
yeah. So twistedhourglassstudios.com, that's where you can follow along with the game. We don't have a Steam page yet. We're probably going to make one shortly, but definitely if you go to that website, you can sign up, and we'll send some emails as the game progresses. We're going to put it out for playtesting on Steam or Itch.io.
I was going to ask, are you planning on doing an early access of some kind?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also, if you want to come down to our storefront, if you're in Ohio, it's in Chillicothe, and that's objectiverealityvr.com. So come check us out. But
Sweet.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. And
Yeah.
good luck.
Thank
you.
All right. Who's next? Oh, the man, the myth, the legend.
But not game studio and the game accelerator.
What's going, Matt?
Okay, how's it going with you, Chris?
Good. Rough couple of weeks. You've been all over.
Yep. GDC, and then here, and then DICE before that. So.
Yeah. So I guess real fast, you want to let the folks know about what you're working on? Because like you said, you're one of, I guess, 1.5 sort of studios in the accelerator that's doing a platform / not a game.
I guess the other one is kind of doing a game and not a game.
Yeah.
So Matt Stone, I'm the head of Pathos Productions. We're developing a platform called Ludare, where the core idea is helping indie developers monetize their game earlier in the process and across the entire lifetime, leveraging subscriptions, so players can pay a flat fee, get access to a library that includes the typical premium indie games you'd expect, but also games at a very early stage, maybe their first year of development, got a couple hours of gameplay. Players going to hop in and say, well, that sounds really cool. I'll support you rather than $20, $30 for Kickstarter and early access, because those are gotten very risky in recent years. Now I can just play and support you directly through that. And my subscription goes directly to the things that I play.
Sure. So you are also, I think, in a somewhat interesting position. You've got some master's degrees.
Yep.
You've been in the games industry for a little bit. Like 343 and...
343 Digital Extremes, ZeniMax Online.
Okay, ZeniMax, yeah.
It was about 5.5 years in industry. And then, like you mentioned, got my Master in Entertainment Technology from Carnegie Mellon, and then my MBA from University of Michigan.
And you've also participated in other accelerators
Yep.
as well before. So
Yeah, University of Michigan Accelerator. It was a good time.
yeah, well, you're always repping your Michigan pride. So.
Well, they've also given me a lot of money. So they kind
I'm
of
not criticizing.
they
There's no
kind of
judgment.
they kind of have won having their logo put on my clothes. So
Sure. So I guess as you are sitting here in an accelerator, like how was your experience here? What were you looking to get out of it? Like how, because the other accelerators were more sort of like broadly tech accelerators, right? So how was that experience different?
So this has been very good because the networks we've gotten, specifically in the games industry, have definitely gotten them significantly increased through this accelerator. The one issue for us is the fact of like, this is an accelerator really to help people get to understand the business side of stuff. And that's where we already have a lot of strength and a lot of knowledge. And like you said, we've gone through the accelerators, they've really refined us now on our language, our conversation, how do we actually sell this.
Sure.
But it's been helpful working with you and the other mentors to also refine our messaging towards the games industry specifically.
Yeah.
How do we sell it to them? How do we talk to them?
That is an important thing. We've had this conversation internally plenty of times because so Garrett and I have a lot of VC investment experience, and then Marcus and I have a lot of like games industry experience. And even though a lot of the business fundamentals are the same in any industry really, the maybe the logistics are different or whatever, but definitely the way we speak about investment and stuff in the game space is different than, because VCs are like, they want to get in early, get their seed funding. They want you to just like go full speed and either you crash into a wall or you make a lot of money. But that's not really how games are kind of.
Well, they want that, but they also want a steady return on income so they can get a proper valuation, which is not how games work.
Yeah.
I release a game, I make so much money in 3 years, and then I kick off to the next thing, and hopefully I make a bunch more money.
Yeah.
If you look at it through that standard, really, the valuations of most games are going to be maybe in the low millions at best.
Yeah.
Whereas you're looking like a
Well, that's why
B2B SaaS
franchises
company.
are so popular too, because it gives you something you can cling on
Yeah.
to over time.
Well, yes, but it's also very hard to get that accurately, and then it's very hard to get that accurately done, and then get that in the first couple of years where you can get that recurring to then show that you're going to make that work.
Yeah. Well, that's like I had a conversation last week about, we were talking about Marvel, and you can crap on Marvel all you want.
Yeah.
Trust me, there's things to crap on. But like this conversation came about, I was like, how many careers for actors has at this point has Marvel contributed? And like, there's such a juggernaut. But then you have to remember that they were around for 60, 70 years before anyone really cared, as far as movies go, right? And it's a different outlook.
Well, I think the main thing is, I assume you've seen like the capital like quadrants that they bring up in every entrepreneurship class. The main thing is, I think for games, I don't think it's talked about as much. The fact of like, if for VC, you have to be high growth, high risk. And that's not how most game companies are. They are high risk, low growth, which there is a class of investor for that.
Sure.
That is just not the A16Zs, the light speeds of the world who are like, we're going to give you a bunch of money, we're going to give you millions of dollars, we want you to be worth billions within 10 years. Like, that's just not how this works.
Yeah. Mr. Tommy. Huh? It's a library. No, you are correct, and I think that is one of the difficulties that I think both Ohio and Michigan experience as far as funding. One is most of our institutional investors just don't have experience in the games and entertainment space, and most of the time, investors don't invest in things they don't know about or they don't understand. So that's problematic. And then, like you said, trying to convince an investor, like, well, I want to own 20% of your company. It was like, well, I'm giving you ownership of this product, not the company. And they're like, well, what's the product? What's it going to do? What's it look like in 10 years?
Well, that, and also just, if you think about it, really getting deep into VCs, the way VCs work is they put out money, and then once that money comes back to them, they aren't able to invest it again. So they really need that money to come back at a really high growth a little bit in the future. Whereas if you just come back and say, hey, I made this IP, I flipped it to, let's say, Devolver bought it off me for $2 million. Like, cool. I gave you $200,000 for that. I can't use that $2 million to do anything now, when I wanted to see like $20 million out of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, for those who don't know, most like VC portfolios, the general thing is that out of every 10 companies, 1 or 2 are going to pay you back. Usually 5 are going to be dead in the water.
You fail like half. The other, like 2/3 or another third of them gives you like 1 times return.
Yeah,
you got like 1 or 2.
So out of every 10, 5 is going to die. 2 or 3 might break even, and then 1 or 2 are going to pay it for the rest of it. But yeah, so you specifically though are
creating a platform that has sort of, I guess, a front end way of helping early stage developers. But then your argument is, I think you used the 5-year cutoff for that, for like kind of the long tail, is that after about 5 years, it's really difficult to make any money continuously on a standard like purchase system.
Because if you look at it right now, our two methods to get around that are DLCs and microtransactions. DLCs have just always had a horrible attach rate, and that maybe I'll convince like a 10% of my audience that buy onto it.
That makes me sad too, because so I'm old, and I remember when the internet became a thing, and everyone was like, now we can have these expansions and DLCs. Think about like all these cool things we can do to games, and then of course we do what we always do, which is most DLCs are bullshit, and they're just not very well done, and I think it has created a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
Well, DLCs paved the way for microtransactions, which are now the method that most people try to go with. Like Horse Armor was a DLC pack that effectively was the precursor to microtransactions, which now we've all
and now we literally have Horse Armor as microtransactions.
Which then also, it's interesting because there's a guy a while ago who used to work at Blizzard. One thing he mentioned, and he mentions publicly, so I'm not ruining anything, was that there was the entirety of StarCraft 2 was beat by one Horse Armor in WoW, like in terms of total revenue.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow, we could talk about it all day, but let's talk about Loot Air. So that was the first thing, and then the second thing was the long tail, just finding ways to keep, in this case, I'd say small to medium-sized studios able to at least generate some revenue.
I mean, for most publishers, we run the numbers. Like for most publishers, we can help them out with at least some of their back catalog. There's some games that just don't make sense for this kind of system.
Okay.
Like if you make a very short narrative game, you are better off going to Steam and saying, hey, give me $10 for my 2 hours of narrative, rather than what we're trying to focus on is like, hey, I built a game that's relatively systems heavy. Somebody can come back and play it, and they can play it for hundreds of hours. We can help you with that. We can help actually make more money off that in the long run than that fixed price point, especially because when you look at the price point on a game, most publishers don't actually see that in terms of average return. They see about half that once you take out Steam's fees, discounts, refunds.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of we talked about several times in the pitch where, when you're calculating your break even, I forget, I think it was maybe, I can't remember who said it, but it's like, if you're going to go ahead and calculate a break even, you might as well put discounting in there and some kind of ratio, which is true. But I've always been a big fan of like just charge what you think the product is worth. It's sort of like the Nintendo, like Nintendo rarely does sales, rarely. Just charge what you think the product is worth. And go from there. But
if we hadn't let the genie out of the bottle with the amount of sales we do right now, I'd agree with you. But the problem is sales have become so prominent that there's really two ways around it. One of which is either you have to bake that in, and then your price point needs to be higher so that your sales price point is what you actually expect to make, or you really have to stand out. Because even if you think about like being on Steam right now, there is one marketing event you get from Steam that is not related to discounting your game, and that is, hey, my game came out. Outside of that, everything else is, hey, this game's on discount. It's on your wish list. Now it's on sale. So you have to engage with that system.
Sure. Yeah, I don't disagree. Again, like, we can go through and talk about like sort of sophisticated marketing techniques, but like we had this conversation when we did our first our first game, Hatchet, where we were going to make it a paid game, and then we're like, well, let's make it a free game with advertising. And then we brought it actually back. We stripped all the ads out. We brought it back to being, and we were only charging like $2.99 for it, so it wasn't a big thing. But I think in certain respects, I see this as well with GDEC sometimes and other things. I've worked with other studios where sometimes, I'm just going to say it.
Just say it.
Frequently, the people that are willing to pay the least are also the biggest pains in the ass. And so you often find yourself in a situation where you're exerting more effort and energy to attract these folks. So we noticed, like, when we went free with the ability to pay to get rid of ads, I forget, we had like 20 times more downloads almost instantly, but we made, I think, 50% the revenue. And so at that point, we're like, we should have just kept it the other way. And now, granted, that was 2015, and at that time, the App Store, like having a paid app in the App Store was like nobody wanted it. Things have changed now, and actually, Nintendo was one of the ones that changed that by introducing the more premium apps.
Well, I mean, it has changed, but it also hasn't changed in that, like, people still primarily will play free-to-play games, and if looking at premium games, they'll usually look at where can I get bundles and discounts and cheapness. Like, if I'm going to buy a premium game on iOS, it's mostly going to be I'm going to play Apple Arcade. because that's where I can get a whole bunch for relatively expensive, and the top level games.
Well, I think this is also an interesting conversation too, because a lot of the sort of sales stuff is directly related to Steam. So we're talking PC.
Yep.
Because like on consoles, yeah, games go on sale on consoles, but the big, well, it's changing. Sony's doing like some summer sales, but like Steam is known for like their sales periods.
Well, PlayStation has always done sales. They've done them pretty frequently. They do them like at least 4 or 5 times a year. But you're right, they don't advertise them strongly. But they're also, the main issue there is their audience is different as well. Yep. If you actually look at like adoption, a lot of smaller games don't get picked up on console. Like especially now, people start to look moving away from like Xbox, because what they've seen is if I put something on Xbox, maybe I break even. That's about all I'm going to get out of it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, we could have a whole conversation about Xbox Games Pass, because it's telling an interesting story that we're kind of in the middle of. But I guess for you, going back sort of to the accelerator, you talked about your contacts and your networks. Just as a kind of company, what are your top 3 things you're trying to do right now?
So I mean, our top 3 focus right now that we've got a little bit of money in the door is we're still trying to talk to investors to finish out our round. So we need some more capital to kind of get things moving. Okay. Try and talk to publishers to try to get their back catalog, especially of like premium, high awareness titles brought over, so we can have what we're calling our tip of the spear game, which is I go to somebody and say, hey, you want to play this really awesome game that you know about for cheap as a whole library of this whole thing? Hop in. So we can kind of get people in the door. But then our third angle is marketing and PR. So we can actually try to expand who we are, get people more aware of what we're doing, let them know kind of the story and tale of what the platform is for, as well as what content's on there.
Yeah. So right now, can people interact with your platform? How would they do that?
So you can go to devpowered, devpowered.com. You can sign up right now. You can see our current library. We got an initial library of 5 games that we're working with, another one or 6 that we're currently in the process of integrating, and we're in a conversation with I think 4 more developers, try to get them on board.
And I know you've been working on the back end to create easy integration for devs.
Yep. So we got under a day of work. Really all it is when you go into, you don't even need an engineer to do this at this point. You just go into your game, set the scene that your build goes into to be a scene in a package that we provide for you. So there's some information on there, typically like what the main menu scene you want to go to afterwards is, some basic information for website, where your game ID is, your app secret, package that all up and you're good to go.
Sounds easy.
Yep. That's the goal. Make it as easy as possible so more people will do it.
Cool, man. Well, anything else you want to let the audience know? Any way to follow you and stay up to date on what you're working on?
I mean, we're on Blue Sky at Ludare. We don't go on X anymore because a lot of recent events. Primarily there, we have a YouTube channel where we post trailers for the games that we're bringing on board. It's just Ludare at YouTube. So you can find us there.
Ludare.
Yep.
Sweet, man. Well, always a pleasure. Thank you for being on the show. And
good talker.
Yeah. Are you coming in, or are you?
Let's do it.
All right. I think you might be our last one. Have a seat.
So.
Get wherever feels good.
All right.
All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, do you want to just do a quick introduction?
Yeah.
Of yourself and what you're working on?
Yeah. Well, you know who I am.
Data.
But you guys don't. I'm Liv, and I am the co-founder of Third Wave Studio, and we're working on a game called Goodbye Lorelei.
Sweet. So, what's your elevator pitch for Goodbye Lorelei?
Goodbye Lorelei is a retro Game Boy inspired RPG, but our main hook is called Rainbow Body, where you can put color into the environment, which helps you solve puzzles and assists you in combat.
Nice. Okay. You got that pretty succinct. I know you've
I've been practicing a lot.
Yeah. 'Cause your pictures in the past have been like 8 genres in one, but
yeah.
I think the big thing that sort of catches people's eye, this is what caught our eye in the accelerator for the applications and stuff. And I know you started as a Game Boy like simulator.
Yes.
You've since moved away, but it still sort of has that style, that kind of green and black style. But then you have this color swap that happens, which is narratively connected to sort of, I don't know, say like self-actualization.
Yes.
And
Yes.
whatnot. So a little Jungian in there. I think you said like they had Buddhist influence.
Yeah. Pre-Buddhist influence. The concept of rainbow body, which is what we call the mechanic, is about self-actualization and connecting with one's emotions, and how doing that and finding your inner self helps you connect with other people.
Okay. With I guess the sort of thread is, what was it, like saying goodbye?
Yes. Yeah. Our theme is it's about saying goodbye, and how saying goodbye doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Okay. So, saying goodbye to parts of yourself, to other people, and to relationships and things doesn't necessarily have to be sad. You know, it means that it's a fresh beginning, it's a new start, and nostalgia can be a beautiful emotion.
Sure. I'm with you. So your partner, Donald, who's not here.
No, he's not, unfortunately.
But when he did the pitch, what was it, 3 months ago or whatever? Yeah, he had a beautiful line. It's kicking me. I didn't write it down because I can't remember it, but it was along those lines of goodbye and whatnot. And I think that sort of is the heart, I guess, of the experience you're trying to create, and how you have these different characters. And because a core mechanic, you said yesterday, I'm paraphrasing, so correct me if I'm off, but is building the relationships with the other characters.
Yes. Rainbow Body is directly affected the way that you can use it by how close you are with the characters. Okay. So we have an affinity system in place where the more you open up to the characters, the more they open up to you, which then, because you're connecting on this emotional inner level, then you actually get boosts. So
is that through like dialogue or
yes,
quests, or like
they have personal quests, and we have branching dialogue choices as well.
So part of that, when you were describing that yesterday, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, have you ever played Mass Effect 2?
Yes.
I think the end of that game, I won't spoil it because I think everybody should play it. But the end of that game, how it's brilliant. There's very few games that have done that, where you have your roster of characters and you assign them different tasks, and based on the tasks you assign them, as well as their sort of relative connection to you and your other teammates, determines if the task is successful and if they die.
Honestly, Mass Effect is one of those series that made me want to get into games, writing for games. Yeah, specifically because of how insanely cool the narrative is in that series. I know the ending's a little controversial, but
they went back and sort of fixed it a little bit.
I mean, that DLC was the Citadel DLC. Oh, so good. Okay. But
I remember. We'll get off on a Mass Effect tangent here, because I remember some people. I don't watch reaction people, and some people, like the first one, just really get it and they really like it, and I think that's because of the world and the characters.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, the combat's a little janky in the first one.
It is.
And they fixed the what the little tank rover thing. I can't remember what that's
called.
God,
yeah, the
Mako, right?
That's it. Yeah, the Mako. Oh, the Mako.
In the first game, not the remake, like Legendary. Yeah. That thing was so wonky, and you were just like driving and flying everywhere. But it had so much heart, and I actually was talking to a friend. Like, remember the first time that you step onto the Citadel and you get out into and you just like look at this giant cool spaceship thing.
It just feels immense and just so, the level of detail is really just incredible.
But then when they went from one, I remember too, like the ending part, I always say is like, part of the end segment is like you're literally just talking to a computer for like 45 minutes. But I found it so interesting.
It was.
And other people are like, "Oh my god, it's so boring." I was like, "No, like this is what we've been building to."
Right? Yeah. No, that first time that you play and it gets all laid out for you, and you're just like, "Oh my god, jaw on the floor!" Yeah. Like, woof.
But then in 2, they really spent time cultivating those characters.
Yes.
And we've talked about this with a couple, like Mole Maiden and others, about having that sort of connection narratively that also, like the Rainbow Body, combines into the gameplay experience.
Yes.
Like, if you can pull that off, I think you can create something really memorable.
I hope so. It's the game and the story and stuff is something that's really close to me and Donald personally. When Donald brought me on board and he told me a little bit about why he wanted to make the game and the themes around it, and I was like, I would love to be a part of this. And we've lost people, and it is sad, but being able to process that and moving forward and keeping a special place in your heart, So we hope to honor the people that we've lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately that's what art is for, creating those experiences. And I'm someone that believes that I think games are an art form.
Completely.
And I think that they are able to do certain things because of their interactivity and sort of, decision making and all that other mediums maybe can't do as well, or maybe not as well, but differently. But ultimately, like, art is a way of working through your feelings, whatever that happens to be, in ways that hopefully you'll find useful and cathartic and
Yeah.
whatever.
No, totally. Shocker, I was a theater major for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. And and one of the things I loved about theater and still do is that the barrier between the audience and the media is definitely more opaque than in other forms like TV and stuff where you're very passive. And one of the things that made me get into games was that they kind of removed that entirely. And I love that about games because experiencing something for yourself and going through the motions, even in a gameplay setting, is always just going to hit harder.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there's, I mean, numerous. We probably talk for hours.
Probably.
All these like gaming moments where it's just like you get. I remember like a scene in The Last of Us where like, it's the car scene where you sort of get bamboozled. Is it Pittsburgh or wherever? And I just remember like getting through that scene because it just sort of comes out of nowhere. And at the end of it, I was like, whew.
Right, you're like wiping your brow. It's like a workout.
And I just like games can kind of like pull you into that space, and games that do it well sort of trick you and pull you into it without you noticing. And then when they kind of let go and let you breathe for a second, and you're just like, damn, like that,
Oh yeah.
Good art can kind of like draw you in like that. But games are able to do it because, like you said, it's one of the sort of few active mediums.
Yes.
Like,
definitely.
nothing against movies, but
Oh no, I love film.
yeah, I mean, I go and see movies, but like, you can go to a movie theater, watch a movie, and fall asleep 10 minutes into it.
You definitely can't do that.
That movie's going to keep on going, right?
Yes.
Until you wake up at the credits. But you do that in a game, and you're just going to be like slobbering on your controller while your character's just
Running around
there.
in circles, T-posing,
So it's just a different experience. So I guess just wrapping up here, is there any last things you want to talk about, or any ways that people can kind of follow you and keep an eye on what you're working on?
Yeah, we're the best place to follow us right now is my personal LinkedIn page. There's a link to our proto website, which we're still building.
Okay.
I know. And we've got a Blue Sky and a Discord as well, which you can find there on my page. So it's Olivia Watson is the full name.
Well,
so
check it out. Well, thank you so much, Liv.
Thank you.
A pleasure. And I for one, am very excited to see where your game goes. It's from the beginning. I was just like, I can see the potential there. So
Thank you.
I wish you the best.
Thanks so
if
much.
we can help in any way, that's what we're here for.
I appreciate it.
Sweet. Well, thanks. Elijah, are you stepping into the ring here? On our extra special long episode of the weekly podcast.
Just one after another.
Yeah. So Elijah, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You are one of the people who have been going crazy with the GDC into Pitch Week, and
Yes, absolutely.
so are you sufficiently exhausted yet, or should we throw more at you?
I think you could say I'm exhausted, but you can always throw more at us.
Okay. So, well, first of all, a little bit about you and the game you're working on, for if you want to let folks know.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name's Elijah. I'm a alumni from Shawnee State University. I was a game programming major, but I've also been an artist my whole life. And I'm part of a team making a game called Nomad, and it's a 2D action exploration platformer where you play as a gnome charting a sunken underground forest engaging in bouncing ball combat. So that's our big hook is we want to foster a kind of combat where you and the enemies are hitting a ball back and forth, and it's chaotic and frantic and exciting. And so that's what my team and I have been working on, and I guess I should be looking at you and not the camera.
You can look wherever you want, man. You could look at that, turn around, and just look at that if you want to, I guess.
Maybe I will.
It'd be a little weird, but... I don't think I've told you this, but I found it kind of interesting. I didn't want to get into it yesterday at the pitch. One of the guys had mentioned you have a pretty unique like core mechanic.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found interesting is last year's MatsuriCon, I think, we partnered with MatsuriCon and we have our indie game set up and stuff. And one of the devs there who had worked on another game that was really cool, he was telling me about this idea for a game he had. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. He's like, I'd love for you to try it sometime. I was like, cool, happy to help or whatever. We ended the conversation. I went and sat down, and like 30 seconds later, he comes over to me with like a Steam Deck. And I was like, oh, like right now you want? Like, I thought this was like an idea he was kicking around in his head.
Yeah.
And anyway, he had this like sort of, without giving away too much, it was like a baseball sort of hitting adventure platformer game whose core mechanic is very sort of similar in idea to Nomad. And I remember playing that game, and I gave him some suggestions, and then the next GDEX he came, he's like, I implemented your suggestions. He's like, it just made the game way more fun. I was like, great, I'm glad I could help. And then we met you guys, and you had already implemented a lot of the suggestions I'd given to him from a combat thing. So I found that, like, I always find that sort of symmetrical kind of innovation very interesting.
Yeah.
But the way that you have your game structured is, I mean, I guess I'll try to explain and tell me if I'm wrong, but you have, in essence, these elements, whether it's like you got like a strawberry, so, you know, these environmental objects, and you also can use enemies in some case, but you can sort of like grab them, aim them, and then hit them so they'll ricochet off of things, or they might attack an enemy. But you can also use it to navigate the world.
Yeah, so you can bounce off of them. It's called pogoing. I think that's terminology borrowed from maybe the Hollow Knight community. But so yeah, we feel like you were talking about that symmetrical game design. We feel like the bouncing ball combat, where you're throwing things and bouncing off of them and hitting them back and forth, is kind of a natural evolution of the platformer format, because it involves like so tightly the bouncing and the jumping, and it's all these staples of platformers. And so it's one way that you can just so naturally build on that. And so I'm not really surprised to find that other people have come to a similar type of gameplay.
Yeah.
But I'm almost surprised they haven't as much.
Yeah. Well, I think there's certain things that have just in games or in life where once somebody thinks of it or whatever, and everyone's like, oh yeah, of course. That makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it just takes somebody to like put the pieces together. You know, the pieces might have existed for 10 or 20 years, but someone hasn't put the pieces together yet.
And there's nothing specifically we're doing in that gameplay that I think is entirely new, but it's a lot of things that we've seen touched on in other games, and we've just made that the focus of our gameplay.
Absolutely. Well, pulling back to our conversation about games as an art form, like art in general is reworks of ideas. Like that's what art is. We take the things that influence us and mean something to us, and we kind of add a little spin to it and see where it goes. So yeah, this idea that like every game or everything has to be completely original is just like, we would never get anything done if everything had to be 100% original.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then of course that just completely disregards the idea of innovation.
Yeah. And you need something familiar for your player base too. Like the game has to have something that they can come to with, like the affordances, the things they already know that they can latch onto in order to be more comfortable learning the things that are new that you put into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, since we have students in the chat and stuff, that you talked about in the pitch, but you've also, just by the nature of how you're creating the game, you've made sort of internal tech to assist you in like making levels and testing out things. So I don't know if you want to talk about any of those kind of like helpful internal things, the tools you need to make your life easier.
Yeah. So I'm a big proponent of like editor tools and building your own custom tools and frameworks.
And you're in Unity, right?
Yeah, we're in Unity, so it's pretty easy to do. And so this is actually my first big project in Unity, but obviously you get to this point on any large game project where you're doing something over and over and you think, I could automate this. So that's something that I like doing personally. It's kind of a passion of mine, is just building these tools, but I would warn against over optimizing. Like, I have spent 3 hours, 4 hours building tools that solve a task that could have been done by hand in 10 minutes. So there's a sweet spot where if you're going to be doing something over and over, you can build a tool for it. But you kind of just have to find that spot naturally.
Yeah, that is something I've had many discussions about, particularly with engineers. Staring at you, engineers. There's this tendency to like want to do everything personalized from scratch.
Yeah,
and
I feel that.
I've had engineers where it's just like, oh, I'm not going to use Unity or Unreal. I'm going to build my own engine, and I'm just like, why? And they're like, well, I want total control over everything. And I was like, I get that. But you also have to ask yourself, like, is what you are making, the project you're working on, do you need total control? And I totally get it, like, working in Unity, and then like Unity releases some update, and then you got to run it through, and then like something always breaks, and you got to go and clean and fix it. Like, I get all that, but also at the end of the day, you're trying to most effectively and efficiently create your product, and so you don't need to make everything from scratch. It'd be like, I need a truck, I'm gonna go build one from scratch using like a square steering wheel and whatever. Is like, can we just use the wheel that everyone else is using?
And there's sort of a logical error in that, because it's I think it's almost like a pride thing, like, because I'm an engineer, and when I fall for that trap all the time. But even if you want to do everything from scratch, you're never going to be doing everything from scratch, because like, if you're building a truck from nuts and bolts, someone made the nuts and bolts.
Sure.
So you really just have to decide what is the level that's best for the project you're working at.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing too, just keep in mind, I've had this conversation, is a lot of dev studios, including us, we're guilty of this as well, where we'll make tools or middleware or something to solve problems, and we're like, if we just spent like a couple of days polishing this up, we could throw it on like the Unity Asset Store, and people would find use in it. But then we never do it, just because you're so busy making your game, and then by the time you get to the end of your game, you're just like, I don't want to go back and mess around with this anymore. So I've kind of wanted to. I've never implemented it, but like in the back of my mind, maybe we'll do it with the incubator. Like, I'd love to have like a little hit squad that can just come in and work with teams to like polish up little things and then get them up on the store. And if they make any money, that's another revenue source. Like, we made a day-night cycler for Hatchet, so we could adjust the time of day and everything, and like all the color palettes would change, and the shadowing would change and everything. And we're like, we built it because one didn't exist, and then we just never did any. I mean, we used it in the game, but we never did anything with it after that. And I think that you see that a lot. But then you also don't want to get pulled away from your core mission, which is making your game.
We're definitely in a similar situation with some of the tools we've made, because to do your game design efficiently, you really want to make tools that are bespoke for your specific use case.
Yeah.
And then if you go to release that, you have to make it more generalized. And that's one of the big pitfalls that programmers fall into, is overgeneralizing too soon. But I think we do have some tools that I think could be generalized just a little bit, and then we could probably see some release for them. Like, one thing we made was an attribute. Our lead programmer Kyle made it. It's an attribute called assign me, and we have like all of these fields in the editor that you have to manually fill in, and it gets to be a lot. And this just crawls up to the root of the object and tries to automatically fill in these fields in editor time, so that you don't have to do all of that. And it's just one of the ways that we save man hours doing things that really don't need to be done by hand.
Totally. Caleb on here, he wants to make sure that we're giving props to engineers that are doing these kind of things. One is like just a fun challenge, but also as a educational way to learn about it.
Absolutely.
And I don't have any problem with that. And I think that exploring those kind of challenges to improve your own skills, I think, can be important. My grander point is just make sure you're doing it for a logical reason while you're working on a product. If you're just sitting around on a weekend, you want to like F around with something, like, go for it. Or you're doing a game jam or something, go for it. But like when you're kind of in the nuts and bolts of getting a product done, that might not be the best time to spend a week learning a new tool set or something, right?
Yeah.
Or it might be. I don't know. You got to make your own decisions on that.
There's definitely value to making a tool that it might be a little overkill, but you learn a lot from it, and it will really help things later on. And that's something we've done. But I'm mostly just speaking from personal experience. Like, we were trying to get a feature ready for GDC, and I spent almost an entire day coding it, when in reality, what I later realized was that I don't have time to do that, and I can...
After you'd spent the time?
I could just do it by hand in 10 minutes, which is exactly what I did.
Yeah, totally. Well, as we get close, I do before we wrap up. I do want to ask just about your general experience. Should we bring in one of your colleagues here? Or are you gonna hide?
You want to come in, Kyle?
Okay. You want to say hi to the camera?
Yeah, Kyle.
This is our genius lead programmer, Kyle.
I'm not sure genius quite qualifies.
Well, welcome, Kyle. So I guess I've been asking people about their experience in the accelerator and thoughts.
I think it's been really helpful, kind of, giving us the right perspective on the business side of things. Coming in, I think we had a pretty good idea of how to build a game, but that's only like half the story. Game by itself doesn't do you a whole lot without a business plan and all the kind of the whole business framework around the game. Because if you don't have like a marketing plan or stuff like that,
Sure.
The game won't sell.
Yeah.
It could be the best game in the world, but if no one knows about
Totally.
it, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I always say for folks who are a little bit worry about the business side, like the creatives that are kind of worried about, like just think of the business as like the vehicle that helps get you where you need to go.
Yeah.
And you need
Yeah.
to make sure, if we want to use a car analogy or whatever, like you need to make sure the car is going to have all the parts you need to get across the country, and it's got trunk space to bring whatever you want.
Well, I think the game is the car and like the business is the gasoline, right?
Sure. Whatever analogy we want to use sounds great. But I think that the grander thing is once you feel confident that your business is in a good place and that it can support you and your team, it can make the design part of it a lot easier.
Absolutely. And it's not just the business, like the market fit that the accelerator helped with, but it's the whole running the studio, that project management and time management and networking. Those are all like incredibly valuable things. And like the connections that we've made going to game conferences and meeting with mentors, those also helped with our game design because we ended up play testing so much more and getting great feedback from so many other game developers. And those are all things that we really wouldn't have done if we weren't organized as a studio and going out and campaigning to get the game out there.
I think the having to come up with like a market strategy kind of informs the design of the game from a what is your unique selling point. Because if it's just kind of just another game, it's going to be hard, and that game may very well be good, but if it's not different enough, it's maybe not as good as it could be.
Totally. Yeah, and I think back to talking about like play testing and getting in front of people.
Yeah.
I know, trust me, I've done a lot of it. Like it can be spending 2-3 days showcasing a game is tiring and
intimidating.
Doing it for like 6 to 8 hours a day, and then you're doing. But it's super, super useful because it allows you to see. We were talking about this earlier. It allows you to see where people are getting hung up or like what's clicking with them and what isn't. But the other thing that it can do is every so often, and it might be like, one thing out of every 8 hours, somebody will say or do something really interesting that then clicks for you, and you're like, oh, we should explore that more as an idea.
Yeah.
There have definitely been a couple moments that have really informed you start with an idea, but then someone at like a playtest session or an expo or something really latches on to I really like this, and that stands out to you, and you go in that direction, and it really allows you to focus on the things that are selling the game for people, and it gives you a lot of insight into where is the fun.
Totally.
And I think that can be really hard if you're not going to a lot of these playtesting opportunities.
Yeah.
Because, as a developer, you've probably played your game for like 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
That's what I say. You're so far in it, and a lot of times, like, you know, as you guys were prepping for GDC and Pitch Week, like, you're so focused on getting ready for the event that sometimes when you get to the event, you're just sort of like mentally burned out,
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
And so you're like, that's not the best time for you to be sitting around thinking of design ideas and whatever. But it is a great time to just watch what other people are doing, because you don't have to use a lot of brain power if you're just watching, which is usually pretty good because most of the time we're exhausted.
Yeah.
But well, awesome guys. Well, we're gonna wrap up. Is there a way for folks to follow you, keep tabs on what you're working on?
Yeah. If you look up our studio Jollyware on LinkedIn, that's where we're posting updates about the game.
Okay.
We're kind of keeping it mostly on the down low for the
Yeah.
Keep it on the down low for the moment. All right.
Yeah.
Well, don't keep it on the down low for too
We're
long.
keeping we're holding off on the marketing campaigns, but you can follow on LinkedIn for updates.
Okay, sweet. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Well, I think that's the end here. So that has been episode 59 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. This was our extra extended 2-hour edition. So it's the longest podcast. The second one was Bill Roper. When I talked to him, that was like an hour and a half.
We all get in the shot?
Yeah. Sure, you want to get in the shot?
At the end, just to celebrate together.
Yeah, you want to wave goodbye?
goodbye.
Come on in. Oh, we're going to do some floor sitting?
I don't know.
He'll go down.
Whose lap do I sit on? I don't know. Like here. I'll just go right here. All right.
Awesome. Well,
Come
you all-
on, everybody.
thank
Let's
you for
squeeze
being-
in from
thank
here.
you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for
being a
having
part of the
us.
Accelerator. Again, we will post this video up on YouTube as well, so you
I've had 2 cups of coffee.
share it, and also people discover it over time and whatever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's been episode 59 of Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. As always, I am Chris. Not joined by Baby or Pumpkin this week, but they'll be back next week.
Too bad.
But on behalf of myself, everybody here, the Accelerator team in general, thank you, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
I mean, we might not see them next week.
That's so fun.